Now watch this a moment.
Watch Bobby's next shot closely. A perfect bullseye. One good camera gone.
Fashion seriously, usually to be seen in color-coordinated outfits and black and white brogues.
Magnificent golf, using every ounce of his fiber. His golf swing was very aggressive. It was kind of compact, but he went ahead and followed through with his right foot and did whatever he could to hit the ball far enough to be...
Speed with his body, which was a little unusual in those days too, because everybody did everything with his hands.
He turned his shoulders as much as he could. He used his wrists as much as he could. He fired his legs as much as he could, because if he didn't have enough
the strike, which again you see with so many great players, but there was a smoothness about Snead, there was an authority about Gene Sarazen, a real definite thing.
Aggressive as he was, playing with hickory shafted clubs was kind of unique, because most of the players of his day were much more long and flowing with the kind of rhythm that was required to time those shafts. But he managed to make it work.
He's the man that invented the wedge we all use in the sand now, the sand wedge.
And that was the man's desire to play better, that he went out, realized his limitations in a certain area, and built a damn new golf club.
I felt that he was very firm with his left hand in everything that he did. In all his little chip shots, all his little pitch shots, even his bunker play, he was pretty firm with his left hand. And I really liked the way he carried that through his whole short game and created shots around his strength. And I think that was one of his strengths. And I think that came from that shorter swing where he was used to putting a lot of force in there, where he had to have a strong...
Hit the ball in a way that it was going to hold its line over a relatively rough surface. Stroke as bump. So I think, again, as always, the conditions nearly always determine how people go.
Talking about, they didn't really have a weakness. And if they had a weakness, they overcame it by practice.
Wonderful temperament. When he had a chance to win, he won. I mean, we hear an awful lot about him holding his second at Augusta at the 15th, but I mean, winning our Open and so on. He was a great, great player and a wonderful character, absolute gentleman.
There. Bobby Locke, this is how he'd putt. I'm going to show you exactly what he'd do with the blade. Put it on the toe, aim it 2 foot to the right. It's a dead straight putt. Now watch how he'd come into the ball. Watch this. I hope your camera's got it. Did the camera pick it up? It's in the hole. Look at my putter. He never followed through that much.
And were you a student of his of sorts?
I used to watch him like a hawk, because, I mean, you know, here's a man who'd hit the putt, and before it got to the hole, he was saying, thank you very much. You know, at least we waited to... I mean, this... yeah, it was frightening. I mean, you'd see him putt this length putt here, and here's almost a straight putt, right on the toe there, aim it 6 inches to the right, and he'd go inside and he'd go...
In slow motion.
Died. Let's watch this shot in slow motion. Gary go from that side, so Arnie's picked out a 4-iron. Palmer starts a shot out perfectly, but he might be a little too strong with that 4-iron. He'll be hitting a 5-iron. Nicholas 5-iron on his approach to this well-protected green. Suchak.
Peter, you had a fantastic tournament record yourself, winning over 100 tournaments and championships around the world. But who were the best players, the greatest players that you played with?
Well, pretty easy to name them. They were much older than me, of course. I was a junior at the time. Sam Snead, Ben Hagen, Bobby Locke, and then into modern times like Jack Nicklaus, Palmer, and Tony Lima.
Tony Lima. Tell me about Tony Lima, because he's perhaps a forgotten name, but
yes,
a great player in his own right.
Well, you're right. He's largely forgotten or ignored, because he soon after he won the Open Championship at St Andrews in what was it, '64, he came to play again to defend his title in '65 at Royal Birkdale, and he and I played the last 2 rounds together in one day, I might tell you. But soon after that, he lost his life in an air crash, and sad to say that hardly anybody remembers him now. But I played against him face to face on that occasion, and I reckon he was one of the best players that I've ever seen.
One of the greatest names of golf, of course, is Ben Hagen. I believe he finished runner-up to Hagen in '53 at Carnoustie,
yes,
on his only visit to the Open Championship. What was it like playing with Hagen, or what kind of player was he?
Well, he was almost silent and never said a word. I don't think he was a very eloquent person, which is, I think, the reason why he's not revered now as a kind of god of golf, although he achieved so much. But he never said anything to anybody, and he never wrote anything, and there's really no record there.
And Sam Snead, an immensely gifted natural golfer. Tell me about Sam Snead.
Well, I had a great affection for Sam, and I think he had something reciprocating to me, because he invited me countless times to, say, room with him when accommodation was scarce and we had to sort of double up. He would say, well, you're coming with me, but because I didn't drink or smoke and I went to bed early, which is what suited him fine. So I got very close to him, and he was sort of like a kindly uncle to me, and I've always treasured that.
And of the modern players, how do you rate Tiger Woods among the great players that you've played with? Well,
he's up there. There's no doubt about that, by his achievements. And I would say at this point that there's never been a player of the short game, the short end of the game around the green, like him. He's just like somebody, an athlete that's broken the 4-minute mile. He's in another category now. And I suppose there'll be young people popping up all over the world who'll do that eventually. But he's the only one, I think, right now. The rest of his game, he wouldn't class him as a classic player like Snead, for instance, who wouldn't have missed a fairway in 20 years, and still hit a very long drive too. He was a beautifully made athlete who could drive 300 yards, even with the old ball.